Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Ignite your wow. I'm really excited today. I have a really fun guest, another person that I've met on Clubhouse, and I'm really excited for you to meet him. But first, we have some little housekeeping items to take care of. Oh wait, where am I? I take a week off and I forget what to do. Okay, we have two sponsors today, Blue Sky Video Productions. Bruce Himmelblau is my producer, and he could be your producer too. He's amazing at making this look seamless, and he makes me look like I really know what I'm doing when I really don't. And he's also a YouTube strategist, and that is very important in today's climate of trying to become social media popular. So he's the guy for you. Also, we have Cards That Wow, which is my business, and I am creating more and more things. So I'm thinking of changing the name to Cards That Wow and More, because not only do I do corporate branded handmade note cards, I'm starting to do branded gifts as well. So check out my website, and if you want to have a quick consultation, click the button and let me know that you want to talk to me. So today, Bruce has a tip for us. So let's get into that and see what his tip for the day.
Hi. So I guess actually I was listening to Sue B. Zimmerman, who is also known as the Instagram expert. And we were talking about searches and doing searching for different topics and ideas on Instagram and other platforms, and discovered that you can actually search by emoji.
Oh.
So if there is, if your target audience is one that uses emojis, and that is the universal language, you actually do searches by putting in the emoji and clicking search. And that's the tip of the day.
So what is your emoji, Bruce?
It is both a film projector as well as a film clapper. And that's nice. Those things that goes.
Mine is a flame, like ignite. Get it?
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Great, thanks.
So this is going to be a fun show today because I have Brian Galke, and I hope I didn't just massacre his name because I forgot to ask him how to pronounce his last name. But early in his life, he was fascinated by the science behind body language, microexpressions, and facial feature recognition. The science has been used in anything from jury trial selection, predefining a face on Facebook. Brian's passion to effectively teach this technique and skill to everyone is what gets him and what is his wow. So he is a people connector. He likes to help people. He connects with the audience in all kinds of situations. And what he's going to do today is I've picked 3 people, and he's going to analyze their face. And you can use this in sales. I mean, this is what dating. You could probably use it in dating too. So please help me welcome Brian. So to answer, I said it right. Good.
Yes, you absolutely did.
Eric's question, no, that's not my stomach growling. That's Gus. He's snoring. So I apologize for that, Brian.
Totally fine.
But thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
We met on Clubhouse. Mutual friend Joe Ingram, who I absolutely love.
Awesome guy.
And I would find myself, when I'd see your name in a room, I would just go there. Because I know everybody asks you to do what I'm asking you to do today as well.
Yes.
And it's so fascinating because when you did my picture, you were spot on, and it was scary. It was it was scary. So why don't you talk about how you started, how you got into this, how you decided I'm going to read people's faces.
Sure. Actually I am an introverted extrovert, so I'd love to be around people, and I'm terrified of being around people at the exact same time. Right. So I would go out and I'd want to be around people, but I had no idea how to interact. I felt like I missed that day of school. And so the way that I worked my way through that when I was younger is I picked professions where people had to come to me. So I was a bouncer, I was a bartender, I was a server. And then what does any good introvert do? When I went into a career, I started on the help desk because then people had to call me. Well, sitting still at a desk all day long didn't fit that other need of being an extrovert because I still love to be around people. So as you can see by my bookcase here, I would start picking up books on pretty much anything I could to help me understand other people better and how to interact. So started with Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then I picked up books on body language. But while those things were great, those were reactive skills. And then in 2011, a friend came in from out of town for a conference. And she said, you have to come meet the keynote speaker. This guy is amazing. I said, nope, we were supposed to meet for dinner. You're bailing on my plans. That's it. I'm not going to show up. She's like, no, trust me. You need to come meet this guy. And I went there and he immediately analyzed my face and told me so much about myself. And I was immediately blown away. I'm like, how do I learn this? And he lived local here in Dallas, and I went and got certified. And what happened is, if you look at the trajectory of my career after 2011 to where I am now today as a regional vice president of sales, it's all because I learned how to understand people better in a proactive manner. So I used to be flown around the nation, and any account that was over $1 million that we had to do a presentation for, I was one of the 3 people on the team, and I could practice everything in the hotel the night before. I could make sure the laptop worked, the projector worked, the PowerPoint looked amazing. But when I went in, the people were always the unknown. And like I said, body language is amazing, but body language is reactive. And what I could do is, if I knew who we were meeting with, I could go to their LinkedIn profile or their About Us on a website, and I could figure out, how do I best learn to speak their language? So does that all make sense so far?
Totally. I just didn't want Gus's snoring to interrupt this important thing. No, totally makes sense. And it should be taught in school.
It is. And it actually used to be like hundreds of years ago, it was actually taught to the common person. But then it got lumped in with phrenology. So phrenology is the bumps on the head. And so when that got discredited because they called phrenology a science, then face recognition or facial analysis got thrown out the window with it as well, because people thought, oh, well, if it's connected the face to the head, then, it should be gotten rid of. So it actually used to be taught in schools. Now it still is taught in some places for jury consulting and in some sales techniques. So that's the thing, was I looked at it and I understand being in sales 100% why it was valuable. But what it really helped me with was more on my personal life as well. Because if I went out, it's easy to hide behind a laptop, right? And say, well, this is my job. This is what I do. But when you go to a networking event, then where am I? I was stuck back in my own head. But then once I learned how to understand other people's faces, then I could go into a networking event. And because I'm focused on you and I'm thinking about, okay, what kind of eyebrows, what do their lips say about them? It got me out of my head and into the present moment. And that's really where my life changed. Professionally, it did as well. But that's how I met my wife and everybody else, because I finally wasn't the introvert who was in the prison of their own mind when I was out in public. But because I was learning to focus and give other people my time and attention, it dramatically changed my life.
I think I remember you saying in one of the rooms about, similar to what you just said, that when you're looking and studying somebody's eyebrows or their facial features, they get that feeling that you're really like paying attention to them and listening, and that's right.
Yes, 100%.
See, I do pay attention. I do.
Yes, because this day and age, we're all like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's great, and okay,
Right.
yeah, I'm really paying attention to you, and then it's even worse. Like this is on personal preference. I'm afraid to get a smartwatch because I'd be yeah, okay, and then I'd constantly be looking away. So I have to know my addiction, right, to ADD and everything else. So. I keep my phone in my pocket. But yes, when you're focusing on somebody's face, and I'll take off my glasses because I have a reflection, but when you're looking at someone, you're truly paying attention to them. And you're just taking that second and you're looking at their eyebrows and kind of looking at their ears. People can feel that you gave them your full attention. And so when you do that, it really changes the interaction. People feel seen and heard for the first time in a long time whenever you do that. And when you can tell someone a little bit about themselves, they truly feel seen and heard. And so like I was explaining in one of the rooms, eyebrows, the reason I start with that is because if I'm already going to be looking right here anyway, the next logical progression is to come right here and make eye contact with the person. And that is such a rarity this day and age, that people feel it when you're really, truly paying attention to them. And it's like, if you've ever been in a good conversation, you can be in the middle of an airport or a restaurant. And when you're focused on what the person is saying, you're literally listening to them. It's like everything else goes away. And that's how facial analysis works.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You think I'm joking, but I think you could have like add something additional to your courses and have it be dating, because you know how much time that would save?
So it's not done yet, but if you go look at looking for love in all the wrong faces.com, that's literally the project I'm working on right now.
Oh my God, I love it. I am so going to be there.
Yeah. So I'll put it in the chat, but yeah, it's looking for love in all the wrong faces because with Clubhouse, that's what everybody would ask me. What about this when I'm dating? And the difference between it and the sales or the team building course I already have is this is focused on just high level. What does their eyebrows say? What does their eyelids say? What is their eye angle, lips? And then what you do is you go and look at your own and you say, this is what we have in common and this is where we differ. And then you look at how the difference is and you go, is that something I'm interested in? Or is it something that is going to be a deal breaker before you even go out on a date? Or if you're already in a relationship with somebody or you're married to somebody, it's another new way to look at it and think, oh, what do I need to modify in my behavior? So for example, my wife has a little line right across here and it's called a verbal affirmation line. And that's literally me every day. It's a line that every time I see her face, I should know, find a sincere verbal compliment because that's what fills her bucket. Right. And so when you learn how to understand people based on their facial features, you learn to adjust real time. And people ask all the time, well, give me an analogy, give me something else that helps make sense. And that is, if you've ever read The 5 Love Languages by Chapman, that entire book is about there's a way that you feel and express love, but you're focusing on the other person and how they receive love, right? So if you've read the book, you know, there's gift giving, acts of kindness, words of affirmation. Yes. And so you have to decide not just what works for me, but what is best received by the other person. So it's literally learning to speak their language. So when you understand their facial features, you learn how to tailor things so it's best understood by them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So there's the website.
I love it. I could be your poster child.
Yeah, it's in progress right now. I'm 4 modules in. As a matter of fact, I was doing that right before we jumped on here.
Nice.
And but what I'm doing that's a little bit different is I'm using vectors and illustrations because, and I'm going to give a plug for a friend's book now. After reading the book This Gnostics by Kimberly Slavic, and let me see if I can grab it real fast.
Pretty good.
So this book here. What I learned in it is that people like cartoons when they're learning new things instead of people's pictures. And so the takeaway from that book is everything in the new course is going to be with vectors and cartoons instead of real people because it helps people learn faster.
Yes.
So,
it goes back to our childhood love of comics.
Exactly. And really what's ironic is we were trained by cartoons and comics on how to understand people. So if you go look, villains have very angled features and heroes have rounded features, but they also have a strong defined chin. Right. And so on a similar vein, if you ever want to wonder, what does my face say about me? Go and have a caricaturist draw your face, right? Because what they do is they look at what features stand out and what do they exaggerate. And whatever they exaggerate in your picture is what stands out. So for example, whenever I have it done, you can see I have an angled eyebrow, right? So whenever they're drawing that picture, on this side, it's angled, but on this side, it's kind of rounded. And so what's funny is when somebody draws a picture of you or a character of you, they're literally saying, here's your facial features that stand out. And so you can literally, by looking at people, we've been trained our entire life. We say phrases like, take one on the chin, keep your nose to the grindstone, keep a stiff upper lip. And I love the stiff upper lip one because if you hear keep a stiff upper lip, that means don't share your emotions, right? Like, hey, keep it all to yourself. Well, when you see somebody with a flatter upper lip, you know that they don't like talking about themselves immediately. So what you do is you talk about external things. How's your job going? What's going on, in your world? And then when they start talking about themselves, that's when you've built rapport or you've entered their comfort zone, where then you can ask them about it. But if you come right off the bat and you see a flatter upper lip and you start asking them personal questions, you're in their safety space and they're really just going to stick their hand up like, get away from me.
Right.
So yes, it is 100% of when you learn how to understand people better, you just learn to tailor it to it's best heard by them. So another simple analogy I give is whenever we pre-COVID would travel around the world, I used to be that tourist who expected everybody to learn English. But what I learned about a decade ago is if you learn basic phrases wherever you go, it changes your experience. So we always learn good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, please, thank you, can I have the bill? When you try those basic phrases, anywhere you go, people respect that you tried, and then they'll work with you and treat you so much better.
Mhm.
And the side bonus of that is we went to a wedding in Florida, or actually in Georgia, right across the Florida-Georgia line at Jekyll Island. And I saw that several of the servers were from, they weren't from Prague. Where were they from? Oh, Budapest. And we'd been there. And so I went back into my phone and found my old notes, and I learned how to say thank you. So the first time that they came and brought our glass of champagne or anything to the table, and I said thank you in Hungarian, then they stopped and they're like, what? And I said, well, yeah, I just said thank you. Guess whose glass was never empty the entire night, right? And then they would bring other people over because we took 1 second to show them respect and speak their language, and it changed their experience while they were there. So
That's awesome. So I know before we bring our peeps on to be analyzed,
sure.
I know that women always ask you this question because we get our eyebrows done.
Correct.
So does that reflect, does that hide anything?
It doesn't, because nobody's going to completely alter your face. All that they're going to do is enhance what's already there. So for example, you have rounded eyebrows, right? So nobody's going to come in and go, you know what, you would look much better with an angled eyebrow, so I'm just going to put that on your head. So it's kind of like when you have a yard, for example, they trim it, right? And they just shape it to what's already there, but they don't make a drastic change. However, when people do that, you ever see the kids that when they're younger, they look like they used a Sharpie to put their own eyebrows on? Like it scares you. You kind of like back away from it, right? You're like, ooh, that's not natural. So people just enhance what's there versus redesign it.
Okay, perfect.
Now, with that being said, I'm sorry. Your eyebrows do change over time. So if I showed you a picture of me at 16, 26, and 36, this angle right here that I was talking about earlier, this is the professional side of your face. And I really started getting this angle in my eyebrow when I became a corporate trainer, because people with angles have to think, what's my angle? Help me understand it so then I can help others. And I literally got this angle in my eyebrow when I became a corporate trainer, because I had to understand the material so I could then regurgitate it to somebody else. So yes, I'll see if I can find the picture later and I'll show you guys.
That's crazy. So do you want, I've got 2 or 3 people. I'm not sure if the third person is here yet. Do you want to bring them on one at a time, or?
Sure.
That's easiest, right?
Yeah, because that way they'll have a bigger screen that I can take a look at.
Okay, let's bring Michelle Mybell on. She's one of my besties.
All right. Hello, Michelle.
Hey, Brian and Kellen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good.
All right. So I'm going to start off. First off, I like to ask, and I'll tell you why I ask in just a second, but are you okay if we read your face for just a minute?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So when I analyze your face, there's a few things that first stand up. So the first part is, and everybody can do this at home, is if you grab, now I have different cards that I use. I keep a card when I'm drawing somebody's face, so I can highlight the features, right? So I wipe it away. And this is what we give away in our training class when we had them in person, is we give one of these as has a male one and a female one. And so you could draw in the feature of who you're talking to and figure out what do they have. Well, I'm going to use this for a dual reason. If we were to take a card and go to the closest part of her eye and then the outer part of her eye, what you're going to notice is her eyes angle up, right? So what that means is she is a perpetual optimist on both her personal and professional life. So Michelle will cut out people when they start talking negative, right? Like, it's don't come at me with negativity. I don't like that. She will literally shut down because she likes to hear the positive side of things. So if I was in a sales environment, then I would come to her and talk about, oh, these are all the perks and these are all the bells and the whistles, because that's what makes her excited about things, right? Versus your eyes are very even keel. They're straight across. You're like, give it to me, give me the good, give me the bad. Don't put too much fluff on it and don't get too much negativity, right? But the first thing that I notice about her is her eyes angle up. So she's the optimist, right? And so her challenge is she's always going to be positive, and she starts shutting down negative people, right? So if Michelle's going to look at other people, she now has to know, okay, I'm an optimist. And if she looks at other people's eyes, and for example, if somebody's eyes were angled down, she would have to know, okay, I'm going to have to go a little bit negative when I talk to this person. So it's learning to accept the other people that you interact with, right? Now, you look like you want to say something, Michelle.
No, and that's interesting. I am incredibly positive and optimistic. So
Well,
yeah,
your post this morning shows that the dancing in the car.
I was dancing in the car at McDonald's drive-thru this morning. Yes, I was.
There you go.
I was.
So then the next part that comes in is here's what's interesting. The reason why I asked, is it okay if I analyze your face, is because your upper lip is smaller than your lower lip, which usually means I don't like talking about myself first. I want to talk about other things. And then once I feel comfortable, then I might come in. So if I'm in a conversation with Michelle, she's going to ask me a ton of questions about myself first before she volunteers information about herself, right? And the way you can tell this is spot on is look at, she's turning red now because she's like, oh crap, he knows me, right? This is how you know. Now, I don't walk into a room and go, I can analyze faces, right? Just like you don't walk into a room and say, I just read a book on body language. That's the whole reason the company's name Subtle Skills, is because this is something you can learn to just enhance your interactions with people and build rapport instantly or with the people that you already know. And that's why I named it that way versus just, calling it facial analysis, which I do have that website, but that's why I call it Subtle Skills. Now, some of the other things, see her high and wide cheeks. So Michelle is the last one at the party. She keeps going and going and going, right? And outlasts pretty much everybody that she's out there with. And then the funny thing about it is she has her eyebrows start out angled, but see how they round at the end? That's somebody who's always thinking about everybody else first, right? So she's always thinking, is everybody else taken care of before she takes a break for herself? So she's the kind of person who would wear herself out, making sure everybody else is okay. And that's based on three different things: the rounded eyebrows, right? The high and wide cheeks, and the smaller upper lip. So all those things tell me is her eyebrows tell me about how she takes in information, right? So she's always thinking about everybody else first. Then come down to the high and wide cheeks, and that is she will keep going and going and going. And then the flatter upper lip doesn't like talking about herself first. So then the other feature you look at, and this is what a lot of people don't know about her, right, is see the jawline here? It's not as pronounced as yours is, but when you see this right here, that's when people make up their mind. It's like they latch in. So you actually have just a little bit of it here, but so see, you've got just here that you're a little bit stubborn. Once you make up your mind, it's hell to get you to try and change your mind. Right now, knowing what we know about your eye angle is we have to come to her with not just, well, you need to change it because of this and give her a negative reason. If we want her to change her mind, do something that we want her to do, right, then we have to come at it with positivity of these are the positive things that would result if you were to change your mind. Now, we're not going to say it quite that way, but I'm going to talk about all the benefits of, well, I understand that you made your decision and you think it's this way, but these are the other things we can do. And it would all be positive aspects, right? Versus if I was talking to you, I know that you've got that as well, right? You've got the good, strong jawline here, but for you, it's even keel. Get straight to the facts, right? Like, what do you want? You don't have to put fluff on it, and you don't have to have negativity on it, right? So let's see what else with Michelle. So put her as the main picture again so I can see it a little bit larger. And I'm going to make you do some funny faces now.
Okay.
All
She's
right.
good at that.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if you raise your eyebrows up for me. Okay, so you have what's called Einstein lines, which means when you put your time and effort into things, you want to understand it thoroughly. You're not a surface level person, and you've got two that go across here. I have no idea what you do for a living, but like you've got two that are pretty solid across here, which means you spent hours and days understanding something very, very deeply. So the question that people ask about face reading is, understanding people based on their face is like reading a map. It just tells you where somebody's been, and it doesn't predict the future. But I can see that you do. You don't sit here and say, okay, just give me bullet points. You're like, no, I want to understand things, right? Like, help me understand it to a deep level. And then squint for me. Honestly, I don't really see anything when you squint, so that's a good thing. All right. And then here's a funny question. Can I see one of your ears?
Sure.
Curiosity. All right, so you're a good double threat person. So you have pretty large eyes and pretty large ears as well. So that means you're both auditory and visual. So a lot of times you can look at somebody and their eyes will be smaller or their ears will be smaller. And then I'll tell you, are they more visual or are they more auditory? But you're kind of like a double threat person. So that part's good. And then you have a rounded chin too. So one of the things that you do that goes along with your eyebrows and your upper lip is you're always standing up for the other people in your life, right? So whenever there's anything going on, you're the first one who wants to jump in. How do I help you? What do you need? What can I help you with? And here is a challenge. When you have a lot of rounded features, right? You sometimes have to let people know what you're doing for them, because that's how you also get your bucket filled, is because you're always doing so much for other people. Sometimes it's okay to let them say thank you, but they can't say thank you if they don't know what you're doing for them. Does that make sense?
It does.
It does? Okay.
It does. Yeah, it actually really does.
Okay. Are you okay? I feel like you may.
No,
Okay.
I have not really disagreed with anything that you.
I would say, how
you
close
said.
is he? How close is he?
Well, what do you think? I think he's
I think
probably
he's
pretty
spot
close.
on.
Yeah, I think he's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's watching, the reason we have 3 different people is because these aren't generic things like, oh, you've had hard times in your life, right? Because everybody's had hard times. So as we have the individual people that come up, we'll be able to talk about what each person's face says a little bit differently about them. So,
Okay. So we ready for
Well,
Carolyn?
thank you.
yes, of course.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Okay. Victim number 2.
All right.
Good
So
morning, Carolyn.
we're gonna. I like to read people top to bottom, left to right, because that's how we learn to read books, right? But I'm going to start with what stands out the most when I first look at Carolyn's face, and that is how the area between her eyebrows is very wide.
Uh-huh.
So in between here. So here, I'll take off my glasses. See, mine are kind of close together, but hers are very wide. So that's what's called a self-will pad, and what that means is you could have a micromanaging boss and it would never matter because you've already outthought them like 10 steps ahead, because you never stop saying like, what else do I need to be doing? What else do I need to be doing? Like, no one will ever push you as much as you push yourself, right? Now, what you have that's a little bit differently from Michelle that was before is you have more upper eyelid. So people have more upper eyelid, think in terms of we. So what are we going to do next? Where are we going? Loves to do things with other people. People who have less eyelid, like I don't have a lot when I'm not looking up at the camera, is I think, well, here's what I'm going to go do. And that's just a bonus if somebody wants to come with me, but it's not a requirement. But people that have a fuller lid, an easy rhyme to remember is the more lid you see, the more they think of we. So I would say when I'm talking to Caroline, hey, where are we going? What are we doing next? Because I know that's what makes her happy, right? Is doing things with other people. Good, strong chin. And can you make her the primary pictures again real fast? Okay, so you have a very wide area right here in between your so for everybody who can't see me, I can't tell or not, but below your nose to your lip is a very wide area. So that's somebody who is a hugger, right? Like you're not, if I give you a handshake after we've met, you're offended. You're like, what is this about, right? You're more physical affection, hugging people when they come by. So you're probably a cuddler as well. And then let's see, squint for me. Oh, okay. So you are forced focus line. So when you squint, the 2 little lines that come in between your eyebrows that you see right there, absolutely. That is when you are focused, you are so much in the zone that we'd almost have to walk up and smack you in the back of the head when you're working. Like you just zone out, ignore everything, right? Like you are focused to a T when you're working on things. Pretty accurate so far?
Bingo.
Yeah. And then she's got a little bit of a flatter compared to lower lip. So again, always going to talk about external things first, come back to herself second. Now, our face is broken up into 2 sides. So I'm going to use this as an example. This is my professional side, and this is my personal side. So your face is actually asymmetrical. It's never the same. As a matter of fact, if people, when they did some advertising and marketing, they made both sides identical and people were creeped out by it because we all expect a little bit of distortion between the 2 sides of our face. And so an easy way to remember that is if I ask you, hey, are you married? That's a personal question. Well, where's a wedding ring? It's on the left hand. So I forgot my jewelry today, but yeah. So if a wedding ring goes on your left hand, and that's normally where my watch is too, I can tell 2 things about somebody, right? Number 1, are they married? Number 2, if a watch is on their left hand, then they're usually right-handed, right? So I'm always looking for other things besides about their face. But if you ask somebody, hey, are you married? It's a personal question. So the easy way to remember is this is the personal side of your face, and this is the professional side of your face. So if we zoom back in and make her her screen a little bit larger, you can see like when I say this, you've been through some tough stuff and you're still here smiling. And that's reflected on the line right here on your personal cheek. That means that you've been through a lot, right? And you're still here smiling. I don't know what it is, but it hasn't been easy. And you're still here being a trooper and willing to volunteer on this. Good for you, because it hasn't been super easy, right? Now for you, your eyes angle down just a little bit. So if I was to sell something to you, I would talk about all the challenges we overcame because you were excellent at spotting problems in advance of other people. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I was coming to talk to you, I would talk about, well, here's all the challenges and things that we had to overcome to make our product the way that it is. And so see, your eyes, going back to what we talked about earlier, if I was to use this angle, they just angle down slightly. And so people, it's not a bad thing. It just means you're good at solving problems. Like you can foresee like speed bumps in the road that we all have to work together to overcome. And that comes back to earlier, like I talked about, you're always thinking so many steps ahead of everybody else that you're like, okay, so we're gonna have to overcome this and then we'll have to do this. You are the one, if we're going somewhere on a plan, because you like to think in terms of you're always thinking ahead and you're good at anticipating what could be an obstacle. I want you to plan our trips. You know why? Because they're gonna be awesome when we go, because you've got it all figured out before we even get there, right? I'm trying to see. Those are the main things. You have larger lower ears. And so the one thing that goes with that is you like perfection. So there's some people who are like, I want things done super fast. Yours are, I want them kind of fast because your eyebrows are low, but then you also want perfection at the exact same time, right? Which is a little so.
Yeah, ask me how that's working out.
Yeah, trust me. Yes. But it's one of the things that's exactly what, when we analyze your face, those are the things that I can see. You also have a good, strong chin, right? So I know that while nobody loves criticism, I'm not worried that you're going to go cry in the corner if I have to tell you something bad, because you're always overthinking things anyway. So you're just thinking, okay, well, I probably already knew that. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, can I offer you some constructive criticism? You're just going to hear what you already thought in your head anyway. So it's just confirmation of, okay, I'll just change that for next time. And do me a favor, make her the primary picture again one more time. Okay. All right. So here's the other thing. So we'll talk about different things with different people. The fact that we can see a little bit of your nostril when you're here. If I tell everybody that's on the call, take a deep breath, everybody goes through their nose, right? People don't take a deep breath through their mouth. Well, very few people do. So the way that you can think about nostrils is if I can easily get air and my nostrils are good size, then I feel like there's abundance, like there's always enough of that I can share with other people, right? So it's one of those things of you're going to take in and do the things that you want to do, but at the same time, you're like, okay, I can take care of other people at the same time. That goes back to the we thing with your eyelids. So now here's the body language fun part. You're getting a little bit uncomfortable because you went to go like protect your neck for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'd pause and say, do you have questions, or is there anything that you felt like was way off base?
There's nothing that's way off base. And kind of like what Kellen was asking about when we get our eyebrows done or whatever, like Botox is so prevalent that like I wouldn't be able to do this. You know what I mean? Like right. I wouldn't be able to like move my forehead. And so like that's one like that's something, but whatever. Yeah, like you were saying, you mow the lawn, it's the same shape lawn.
It is.
And you were talking about phrenology. So my only question to you is like, what do you think about iridology?
I don't know what that is. That
irises?
Irises. I have a book on that, and I read it, but I didn't like memorize it. But I do think that eyes are an organ, right? And so if there's something about the way your DNA was set together, and actually this is a great segue. Thank you very much. So the reason why your face changes is because we're born with something genetically, but epigenetics is what we experience over time. And so yes, with irises, they can actually change. Like for example, eyes become bloodshot, right? If you drink too much or if you've got trauma or anything. So the body changes as we change over time. So yes, I have seen examples where irises can change a little bit, but then there are also people who are born with like two calico different eyes. Mm-hmm. Yes, but there are people who actually say that much like they can come in and look at your irises for certain parts of the iris, connect with certain parts of the body. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about it, but here's the one thing I figured out. The body tells us a lot and is an excellent feedback meter. But I don't think we know enough of the different ways to study it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
totally, because in my like study of wellness and like human people, it's, you know, the iridology is so interesting to me because they're like, okay, so if you have a dot in this quadrant, it means something to do with your liver, or this quadrant, it means like this lung function, whatever. So, you know, but that's like microscopic as compared to like what you're doing. But I just was curious for you because you do this, like this is what you do. You look at people's faces.
I do. So my challenge is I feel that eye contact is so important, but I feel like I would have to get so close to look at somebody's iris that it would be hard to use except for in a professional setting. Like they would have to come to you knowing that's exactly what you do, versus this is a more of just when you run into people in general, how can I understand it? And so people ask all the time, well, so do you automatically analyze somebody's face? No, because it's one of those of, you don't always look at somebody's body language, right? You just, if you want to, you can do those things. And that's kind of the way that I look at face reading. Now, I will practice all the time on people without them knowing it. Go to the airport, go to a restaurant. You want something that will change your life. Pay attention to a server. Give them an extra 30 seconds of your life. Ask them their name and stare at them and just look at and think, what kind of eyebrows do they have? And do they have a flatter upper lip or a fuller upper lip? Those two things alone, because you're giving them a few seconds of your time where most people are dismissive, right? So most people are like, okay, well, I'm gonna order this, here you go. And then are very just like, get out of my way, bring me my food, and that's it. When you pay attention to a server, it changes their life. And it doesn't have to be a server. It could be something when you're checking at the airport, who's ever nice to the person when you're checking bags at the airport or at the hotel. But when you do that, it makes them feel seen and heard. But then it has a ripple effect because everybody who comes after you benefits because they feel better about themselves. And so when you do that, it is the best use of your time ever because you're making somebody feel like a person, which they are. And then they give that same positivity back out to other people. Now, back to what you were asking about plastic surgery. Nobody ever knows why are so many women getting their lips done. And it's because of what I've said now for both of you 2 in a row is if you have a fuller upper lip, we are raised to say, oh, well, that person is more personal. They like talking about themselves. So that's the whole reason why before upper lip injections were popular, people did duck face in photos, right? Nobody ever told us why, but that's exactly the reason why people do it. And that's the thing that it absolutely blew my mind when I was taught this in 2012 was we're taught to be face readers without being told what we're doing because of sayings and everything else. So like I said, take one on the chin. If I say, keep your nose to the grindstone, does that mean keep doing repetitive things over and over? Well, when you see somebody who's got a smaller nose, that's called a worker bee nose. And you know that they're good with monotonous details that have to be done over and over and over again. So we talked about how to use it in sales. It can be used in customer service, but more importantly, it can be used in team building because if you learn to look at everybody on your team and think, how can we best work together? Or how do I treat them like a person and play to their strengths? That's another aspect of it. Now, people will ask, what about HR? I'm not a fan of that because I believe everybody deserves to interview and get a job. But once they're hired, I'll absolutely help you find out who they are. But I never want to teach something that would cause somebody not to hire somebody because it's not 100%, right? Just like I was talking about earlier with watches, is if I ever see a watch on somebody's right hand, I'll say, oh, are you left-handed? And it's just a personal curiosity. But some people will say, no, I'm right-handed. And I said, but you wear your watch on your right hand? They said, oh, well, my dad did or my mom did. And so nothing is 100%. And that's why this is called the art of facial analysis, not the science, because it is not 100%. So sorry, I went a little bit long there, but you reminded me when you asked about the iridiology and epigenetics. So
cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Okay, we got Alan, who's my badass friend, super badass. And then we have another person that is your lookalike who wants to have their face done as well.
I said my twin is here somewhere, so yes, that'll be kind of fun.
Hi,
Brian, Kellen.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Would it be easier if I took glasses off, or does it matter?
Well, actually, I want you to leave them on for a second because it's going to prove a good point. And so, well, first I'm going to let me change over so I can see comments. So let's, for fun, because people have been watching now, if I were to say, what does his upper lip say about him? Is it Alan? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. So if we were to ask people like, what does his upper lip say? Right.
He doesn't like to talk about himself.
There you go. That's how effective it is when you're learning how to understand people based on their facial features, is you can understand it immediately. Now, the second part is you actually asked about glasses, which is a great segue. So we subconsciously choose our glasses that kind of reflect our personality, right? So mine are just a little bit rounded, and unfortunately, you can't get angled eyebrows without looking like the 1950s, like crazy cat lady glass. But if you look at Alan's glasses, they're straight across his eyebrow and they're low and close to his eye, right? So now if he takes off his glasses, what we're going to see is his eyebrows are low and right above his eye. So Here's the thing with Alan. Get straight to the point. Don't waste his effing time and give him facts and figures quickly, right? And then what you do is once you give him the basic information, you step back and say, what else can I answer for you? Because Alan understands things so fast that his big frustration is don't waste my time and I'll ask what I need to know. But if I keep talking and talking, you're going to shut down, right?
Or hang up on you.
Yeah. So that's when you can learn how, like I said, when he's got straight and low eyebrows. So straight eyebrows get straight to the point. But the closer that your eyebrows are to your eyes is how much faster you understand things. So Alan probably has a tendency to interrupt, and not on purpose. It's just you understand things so much faster than everybody else. You're like, okay, how much longer till they're going to get it? So we tend to want to help other people that don't understand things as fast as we do, right? And then here's the other thing too. Alan's eyes are kind of recessed like mine are, so they're a little bit back. So people who have recessed eyes, I call them like back of the bus. Because when you go to anywhere, like let's say you go to a seminar or something, you have the people who sit on the front row and want to be included in everything. And then Alan and I are going to be in the back row because we're always evaluating everybody else and what's going on. And so that's why I say that, like with recessed eyes, I call it back of the bus, because if I sit in the front of a seminar, I can hear everything else that's going on behind me. But if I sit in the back, I can take it all in because I'm always evaluating things, right? And so that's what Alan's eyes say is he's always going to sit back. And even when he's nodding, he's still evaluating. Doesn't mean he always agrees with you. It means I heard what you said, but I haven't made up my decision yet, right? He will throw punch you. That's great.
I don't think you will. That's a Eric Bam thing.
Yeah. And then he's got what's called not a self-will pad. That's what Carolyn had. A process brow. So if you turn a little bit to the right or the left, so you see the little brow ridge that he's got across his forehead there that the light's reflecting off of. So when you see that on somebody, that's somebody who likes to know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. If you go from step 1 to step 4, he's going to stop us and go, wait, what about 2 and 3? And it's because he understands things so fast. He wants to understand how you got from the beginning to the end, right? Now, here's the most interesting thing about Alan's face right now. See how we can see his nostrils without him having to turn his head back? That means that Alan so when you can see somebody's nostrils, that's like somebody going, hey, I'm willing to share my air with you. And so people will probably come up and talk to him for he has no idea why. But when our noses are kind of turned up a little bit, it literally means, okay, well, we'll listen to anybody come talk pretty much about anything. So it's almost like a sign that says, come and talk to me because I'm going to share my air with you. And that's why, if you've ever wondered why people will come up and talk to you out of the blue, that's one of the reasons, according to your face, is why it's there. Now, if you notice, his mouth is kind of there and then angles down just a little bit. So the thing about Alan is because he understands things so fast, right? He's always thinking, all right, I'll listen, but you have to prove things to me. So he's one of those that as a trust but verify person. So he'll listen to you. Like I said, he's always evaluating. But that little downturn right here is a little bit of distrust. So it's not sadness. It's like when we were kids and we used to draw a smiley face or we draw a frown. It's not a frown. It's a flat line that just goes, okay, just turns down a little bit. And that's like, hey, I'm a trust but verify kind of person. I'll listen to what you're saying, but you're going to have to prove to me that it's really legitimate. Now, he has the largest chin right in here. Like that is one of those that he can take a beating. Like criticism, is like Superman and bullets. He doesn't hear jack when anybody's saying anything. And that's that super strong chin he's got in here, right? Like you can just keep throwing punches at him. He's like, all right, that's fine. What's next? So that's a great thing to have, because literally, I mean, we live in kind of a negative society, a negative world. And the stronger your chin is, the less you're like, okay, so I heard your opinion, so what? And you can move on from there. Raise your eyebrows up for me. Okay, so see what we were talking about earlier? Did you see the lines? He's got one solid one that goes all the way across. It's pretty deep. I usually see that on like doctors, attorneys, engineers. So I don't know what you do for a living, but you got one super solid one across there.
Well, Eric said the throat punch because I'm a martial art instructor, but I'm also a licensed attorney as well.
Oh, there you go. So yes, that's so I mean, you can see how effective it is you can instantly understand people just enough of, like we talked about. So going from top to bottom with Alan, right? So he's got that process brow, which is basically, I want to understand the process. So it's called a brow ridge. Then he's got low and straight eyebrows, get straight to the point, don't waste my time. Recessed eyes, so he's always going to be evaluating. And so again, I would get straight to why I'm there, what do I need? And I let him ask me questions. And the jaw and the chin part, that makes a lot of sense now, especially with the two things you do. Literally, you do take one on the chin with the martial arts side. And then, yeah. So, and so the interesting part that, like we talked about earlier, is when somebody doesn't like talking about themselves, but yet their nostrils come in, people are going to come and, again, talk to you about pretty much anything. But that's great because you don't have to talk about yourself much. You're like, okay, cool, I'll listen to it. What do you want to talk about? But I know in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, get straight to the point so we can be done with it. So is there anything that was off base on that?
No, most of us, yeah, I can relate to, definitely.
And so especially with you being an attorney, so it used to be used for jury consulting in a lot of places, because it's not determining the future. It's just trying to understand the people on the jury a little bit better. So there are entire teams of people who are hired for, and I always say this wrong, voir dire. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. You know, and the funny thing is I don't practice law anymore, but years ago when I was told that I was very good with juries. So.
It's funny. When we learn to focus on other people, we learn a lot more. And the funny thing is, growing up, we're all thinking everybody's staring at us. And so we're our own worst enemy. I mentioned earlier about like the prison of the mind. I lived until 2011, 2012. I lived in the prison of my mind, because even when I was out, I was always thinking like, what's going on? And so when I learned to focus on other people and get out of my own head, number one, people can tell when you're stuck in your own head. But when you're focusing on people and you're constantly thinking, how can I better interact with that person? It will change your life. Like I said, the book, The 5 Love Languages, completely agree with. That's the whole focus of the book, is not just how do I receive things, but how do the people I want to interact with, want to receive things. And that's how face reading really changed my life, is by learning to focus on how it's best received instead of how I want to say it, is how my sales career and my professional career changed as well. So, yeah. All right. So you said there's the twin that's got
twin. Thanks, Alan.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me still? This is so fun. Thank you.
Well, of course. I love doing this. That's the whole thing. It's like I call it paid practice, because it's going and getting to do it anyway. And it's something I love. And you get to see the smile on people's face, and it becomes a game to a point, right? Like when you see somebody turn red, then you're like, got them. Or they try not to smile and they're going. So
is there something about my face that makes people want to tell me all their problems?
Well, I mean, the rounded eyebrows for sure.
Okay.
And then you have the healer cheeks, which are the high and wide cheeks here, right? But in the rounded chin for sure. Now, here's the one thing, and I think I mentioned this before, that you have that nobody else has had a minute ago, is you have the Cupid's bow, which is the little arrow right here on your lip. And so if you're going to be talking, I would highlight that with what you call lip liner and lipstick, because it's a subconscious arrow going like this, saying, listen to my words when I talk.
Oh, cool.
And what we were talking about earlier, I don't have one of my masks sitting right here, but the reason that we're having the hardest time right now during the pandemic is because when people are talking like this, not only can they not hear what we're saying, but we are natural lip readers because as kids, the first thing we're born with is sight, right? If we're lucky enough to have it. There's some kids who are not born with that, but we're born with a fear of heights and a fear of loud noises. But we learn to speak based on watching other people's lips move and mimicking that sound. And so, yes, for you, I would highlight that all day long because it's just going to mean when you have a presentation, you want people to pay attention, highlight that arrow. That's a beautiful thing to have. And so people are just going to, and now here's the thing, they're going to look at your lips and not so much at your eye contact, but it's your secret weapon. I would use it all the time.
So will it make my daughter listen?
It might.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have Wes? Bruce? Because he does. Oh, there he is.
Oh, there you go.
Hey.
Brian, you're a good-looking guy.
I know. See, he even added in the salt and pepper side for, the same. So, okay. So here's the fun part, right? Like if you look what we talked about earlier with glasses. So his glasses literally reflect his eyebrows. You can't see his eyebrows because of his glasses, right? But now that we know, even when he's wearing his glasses, so go ahead and take off your eyeglasses there if you don't mind. So see, he's got straight eyebrows, right? Just like his glasses were. So much like me. So let's play the twin game, all right? So what do him and I have in common? So him and I don't have a lot of eyelid. Now, because I'm trying to look where my camera is, he's got even less eyelid than I do. So he's 100%. Here's what I'm going to do. I tend to go, okay, I'm going to go do this, and I'll stop and go, and I'll check on people, right? But Wes doesn't have any eyelid, right? So he's like, hey, I'm going to go do this. If you want to join with me, great, but it's not a requirement. It's just a bonus if people come in with you, right? And then cheeks a little more in. So you're like a sprinter, right? Like go, 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 take a break, go, 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 take a break. Is that right? I can't see where your cheeks are. But his eyes are even across, like they don't angle up, they don't angle down. So you can just keep things even keel with him. He's got the good, strong, rounded chin. Now, here's the one piece of advice I'd give to you, Wes, is we can't see your upper lip, right? So if you notice, I trim mine so that people can see my upper lip because I have that Cupid's bow, like I was just talking about a second ago. So yeah, see, so you've got a good fuller upper lip, but people don't know that, so they won't ask you about yourself. And so if you want people to not be afraid to ask you questions, then trim that up a little bit, because then they can see your upper lip and they're like, okay, he's open to talk about himself. But yeah, that's, and then he has a little more independent ears. So if you look, his ears come out a little bit. So ears are like wind drag on a plane. So the farther out your ears stick out, the more you're a nonconformist, right? His just do it out a little bit at the top. So the most part, you're a pretty easygoing guy, but occasionally these parts are just where you're going to be a little stubborn, right? And then I can't see a whole lot of other facial features, but let's talk about your eyebrows for a minute. So what's interesting is they kind of start back here, right? So they're thin, then they get thick in the middle, and then they kind of trail off at the end. So what that does means he's got two different things. So like we talked about earlier, there's the personal side, which is this side of your face, and then there's the professional side, which is the right side. So if you look, he has kind of two different eyebrows, right? So on his personal side, they get thicker as they go along here, and then they drop off. So he's like, okay, I'm good. And at the end, you get bored and move on to something else. Now, what's interesting is on your professional side, it's thick, and then it goes to scattered. And when they're scattered on the end here, like yours are, that's just somebody who loves a variety of subjects. Like you obviously don't stick to just one thing, because scattered hairs across here are like, this is a subject I love, this is a subject I love, this is a subject I love. And your face actually reflects that. And if people go, no, there's no way eyebrows, then the question is, then why do we associate unibrow as being like smart and intelligent, or you could say nerdy, whatever you want? It's because literally eyebrows are also a reflection of how we take in information. And so the fact that on his personal or professional side, he's got those access hairs on the end, that's like each one is its own little subject that kind of breaks off of his eyebrow that he loves to talk about and do. Now, that doesn't surprise me, because looking at your background, you've got a whole variety of things. You got the mannequin model on your desk, you got the ring light, you got all kinds of stuff back there, right? So It's a whole variety of things that you enjoy doing. And I would ask him about work because he's got a fuller upper lip or lower lip here. So you just love talking about external things like, here's what I do for work. It's your hobbies. You're talking about sports, you name it, right? And then raise your eyebrows up for me. And so see, he's got one pretty solid one across there too. So that's the intense time and study. And then if he squints, he's got kind of the forced focus lines, but nothing that really stands out too much. But I take that back. It's hard for me to see from here. Do you have a little line right across here? Yeah, you do. So this line across here, when you squint, that's a burnout line. And so when you see that on somebody, that is somebody who you were at your absolute effing limit. And I have no idea what it was about. It could have been personal. It could have been professional. But when you see somebody that's got that solid line across there, almost like my glass ridge here, that's somebody who was at the edge of a cliff. Like things were bad and tough. They had to make some really hard decisions. And so when they still show back up and smiling, it's kind of like Carolyn earlier. So she had on her personal side deeper ridges here, right? So when you see deeper ridges on one side or the other, but especially when you see that burnout line there, that's literally from being so angry you're doing this nonstop, like, and almost you can put the head shake with it. But when you see that, it starts to form that burnout line right across here. And so I don't know what it was for you, but you're still here and you're smiling and you seem to have a pretty jovial attitude. So I'm glad you got past what that was. And if you want to share it, cool. If not, it's fine. But my guess, it was probably professional related, because that's what on guys, it seems to be a lot more so, only because we're kind of cold hearted on a lot of the romantic stuff and family and everything. But it's usually when I see one on a guy, it seems to be more employee related or employment related. So is that an accurate portrayal?
Not on that one.
Not on that one? Okay. But see, so that's not everybody's face has a ton of features, right? So we talked about his eyebrows, no eyelids. So he's fine with doing things by himself. People join him, great, but not a requirement. Even eyes. Like I said, I would definitely trim up the upper lip because people can't see it. And you got pretty good upper full lip where people would ask you more about yourself if you trim that up just a little bit. So, and then I can't really see like your cheeks kind of match in, but like I said, it looks like they're about here is the widest part. So I can't see, but if they are, the cheeks are like gas gauges. So the wider your cheeks are, the more energy you have. So like if you were to point, because your face is kind of red like mine, like I turn red, where's the widest part of your cheek at if you were to hold your fingers up to it?
Widest? Yeah,
the widest part. Oh, okay. So that's where your cheek. Okay, then I retract my earlier statement where I said you're a sprinter, where you go and take a break. The high and wider the cheeks are is the longer that you can go without a break. So if your cheeks are high and wide like that, then you're more like the Energizer Bunny, just keep going and going for long periods of time without rest. So, thoughts, Wes?
It's all good. I can see again.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
By the way, I got these glasses because they're fathead frames. They're the only ones that would fit.
Oh, yeah. But you could have gone with rounded at the top, right? But you didn't. You went with straight, which is just like your eyebrows. And so that's the funniest thing about, we pick sunglasses and glasses to go on our face, right? And when we put them on, we feel like, oh, these are me or these aren't me. And a lot of times they reflect our eyebrows and our personality to a degree. So,
very, very cool.
All right. What other questions do y'all want?
Is that it, Wes?
That's good with me.
Well, thanks for being a participant. I appreciate that.
Trim that up, Wes. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because I want to know that we can talk to you.
All right, I'll trim it.
Oh wow, that was fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll give you two websites that. Yes, it is similar to DISC personality to a degree. But the funny thing is, with a DISC personality, it just says, "Oh, you're this way." But with face reading, like I was talking about earlier, it's two sides of your face. So it's your professional side and your personal side. So we're all different people, right, in work than we are at home a lot of times. So we can have, literally, we're all a little bit two-faced. And that's what I call the class that's on there, because our eye angle can be different. Our eyebrow can be different. So the two sides of our face can be completely separate. And that's why you can have identical twins, same genetics, same parents, but you'll notice little subtle differences about themselves while they're there as well. And just really our face reflects what happens to us over time. And that's where epigenetics comes in. So the way I tell people is The mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. And so when those things happen, our face slowly alters over time. So it's not like I woke up one day with an angled eyebrow over here. It's just over time, I went and looked. I'm like, oh crap, I have an angled eyebrow now. And sure enough, it's when I became a personal trainer or a corporate trainer. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
Are you talking about me, Tim? No. Okay. So how can people find you so they can sign up for your class? Do you have any rooms or clubs on Clubhouse?
We do. So on Wednesdays, Joe and I host one called Advanced Sales Skills, where we just talk about a variety of things that have made us successful. So it's part of the Genius Continuum, which is Joe's stuff. You can go to settleskills.com or the link that we just put up, settleskills.com/clubhouse. What that is just an explanation of people ask, number one, is like, well, what if we're wearing masks or we're on Zoom calls now? And so we talk about all the features that you can still see. You can see it scrolling through here. And then what I did is people I met on Clubhouse who volunteered, our agreement was, hey, I'll read your face if you let me add you to my portfolio. And so then what I did is I would take a picture of the person, like, Amy Lee and some other people. And so there's a picture of their face and then what you can see on their face. So like there's Amy Lee. That's a picture she sent. And then I went down and just did a quick how to analyze her face. Yeah. So this is for the full-blown class. And there is a code at the bottom with the Clubhouse that knocks the price down pretty significantly. Okay. And then the other website that we were talking about earlier is lookingforloveandallthewrongfaces.com. I am doing that one for $97 because it's still being created. And then the price will go up afterwards. But that is going to be, how do you look at just high-level features? Not quite as in-depth as what I went in today, but it'll cover things like eyebrows, eyelid. So I call it learning to swipe right instead of swipe right. Because, let's be honest. When somebody looks at the picture, they go, okay, hot or not, I'm interested. But then you want to maybe say, like, I've had too many bad dates and now I want to actually dig just a little bit deeper before I go on a date with somebody. That's what the class is designed for. Because I have so many friends that are single, and that's their worst thing is they're like, well, they looked hot on the app, and then we went to dinner, and it sucked. And so that's then the new focus, especially since Clubhouse. People will be like, hey, can I send you this person's picture? I'm like, yeah. So I finally just said, all right, I'm going to create a course on it.
So, okay, just give us a little tip. I'm not on dating apps anymore, but it was frustrating. And so what would you give as one tip as to what to look for or what not to look for in the facial features?
I will. So if anybody goes back to the previous website and you go to either settleskills.com or settleskills.com for Clubhouse there, you can download the eyebrows cheat sheet because that's going to be number one. Because for example, you have rounded eyebrows. You're always thinking about everybody else. So you're going to talk about wheeze and things like that, right? Like what's going on with other people in your life. Well, people with straight eyebrows are like, hey, get straight to the point. So, and then people with angled eyebrows are always thinking like, what's in it for them? So that's a simple one. Okay. I want to give you three because I think these are like they're pretty important. And only because I focused on these two already. If you have a fuller eyelid and they don't, well, then you're going to be combative language because with no eyelid, you say, well, I enjoy this, I. And somebody who has a fuller eyelids, you may think, wow, you're like a narcissist. And it's like, no, because they think in terms of we, right? Like, well, what are we going to do? What do we see? And so I always look at eyebrows, then eyelid, and then last but not least is the upper lip. Okay. Because the upper lip is a big one when you're first meeting somebody because you're wanting to get to know them. But if they have a flatter upper lip, they don't like talking about themselves. So you got to start asking them about external things first. And then when they start to talk about themselves, you're like, aha, now we can talk about you, right? Right. So I would ask somebody with a flatter upper lip, I wouldn't say like, oh, tell me about yourself. I'd say like, tell me about one of the favorite places you've ever traveled to. So you make it about external things where you're still getting to learn about the person. Let me tell you, where people decide to travel to tells you a lot about them as well, right? If they only say, oh, I've only been to Vegas 12 times, you're like, okay. And so you'll learn more about asking, and I do that as a networking question, right? Because the number one thing that people hate is,
what do you do?
What do you do, right? So my first question is like, hey, man, when we can travel again, where's the first place you're going to go? That's because you learn a ton about them. and if it's somewhere that you've already been to, then you can just go right ahead and that's true. Look, you'd be surprised. I've had people come up and say, why the hell did we pay for a marriage counselor? We just could have come to you and realized that. Because we get hired out for corporate events where we'll go in and we get hired for hourly just to do, not to teach people how to do it, but just to read faces at corporate events or weddings or things like that. And I call it paid practice because my main gig is speaking, but it's fun because I get to go where the party's at and I get to meet interesting people, right? But whenever there's a couple, I always say, well, who wants to go first, the gentleman or the lady? And then it's usually the guys don't like to really talk about themselves very often. So they'll be like, oh, ladies first. And then I'll say, okay, do you want to know about similarities or differences? And so back to your point, I would talk about eyebrows, eyelid, and upper lip, because those three things will tell you a lot about people. Now there's tons more of, for example, we talked about your cheeks, right? Well, if you meet somebody whose cheeks are really narrow, and they're a sprinter and you want to keep going doing stuff, and they're like, well, I'm tired, I want to sit down. You're gonna be like, God, you suck, I want to keep going. So you can tell a lot of things about each other. And so there's two parts about it. I guarantee you, everybody who's been on here, the next place they're going to go is to a mirror, right? And they're going to go and check out their own face and cover up one side versus the other. And then when you start looking at other people, you start thinking, okay, well, here's where we're in alignment and here's where we're a little bit different. And we can learn to love the differences in other people, but you have to decide, is it one you want to put up with or not?
Right.
So does that help answer the question?
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course.
This has been so fun. Okay, where do they go to get the cheat sheet again?
It's on the subtleskills.com/clubhouse. And a little bit down, it says download the cheat sheet for eyebrows. You can get that there.
Cool. Very cool.
And
well,
then
we're at our hour point, and I'm usually a half-hour show, so this was good. Again, Brian, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on the replay, let me know, and let me know if you have questions. I can get a hold of him, or you can find him on all the social medias. I know you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Are you on TikTok yet?
No, I couldn't make it there. I tried. I haven't been able to get there. I need to get my YouTube channel going, but no, mainly Instagram. And honestly, I'm pretty addicted to Clubhouse right now. So.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So also, please remember to subscribe to It's Cards That Wow, is where these shows are placed on YouTube. I hope you all have a great day, and give me some feedback about this new time, because I'm kind of digging it. So I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you again.